Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our sixth webinar. Today, our title webinar is Effective Communication for Diverse Individuals and Family Styles. Spend more time changing lives and less time chasing emails. And our speaker for today is Lydia Dolch, special education teacher and founder and CEO of Open the Lid. Lydia is an empowerment coach and certified educator for neurodivergent people and allies of any age, label, or location. She's received multiple professional certifications in teaching and worked in residential, home, and community and education settings. Lydia has 17 years in the field of exceptional education, specializing in autism, sensory, and communication challenges, 14 years of parenting children with sensory and language challenges, and 4 years living the sensory life. Without any delays, here with you, Lydia Dolch.
Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so grateful to be spending this time together. And I'm going to try to put like 2 hours of workshop in about 37 minutes, right? So buckle your seatbelts, get paper and pencil because you're going to want to write things down. And the more you engage in this time together, the more it's going to change your life. So you're ready? We're going to have fun. It's so wonderful to see some of my friends from the Tompkins County Health Department here. It was a very sweet moment in my life where I was offering early intervention services for kiddos through the health department. And I'm grateful for the connections that I made with all of you during that time. So let's dive in. I've worked with, everybody in all walks of life, lots and lots of different ages and spaces and locations. And along the way, I've picked up some really valuable information about communication. And I want to share that with you today because your work is so incredibly important. And so figuring out a way to do it effectively and efficiently changes your life, makes it more doable, and also really changes the lives of the folks you serve. And I know that's why you're here. So let's dive in. As Miriam said, I'm a teacher, I'm an empowerment coach, I'm a mom. I also live with sensory processing disorder. And some folks say, like, how did you get here? And so I just want to share a very quick origin story. When I was 19, I was living in Argentina, volunteering at a place for people with autism. And there was an 11-year-old named Juan. And Juan had never said a word in his life until he said my name. And it was at that moment that I just knew I was called to this work and that my life work is to gather the tools I needed to do this work well. So since then, that's what I've been doing. And I'm super grateful. And it was a head injury 4 years ago that forced me to leave the classroom and live environment and bring my skill set to a web-based platform. And I actually did that through Access VR, which is New York State Department of Ed funding for vocational rehabilitation. So it was the best professional development I could ever not want, living the sensory life and navigating public systems. And this was with like multiple degrees under my belt, and it was still super duper challenging. So I bring that information and that experience with me as well. Here we go. Life and communication is a dance. And this might be your style of dance. And it's about figuring out how to move with someone versus how to force them to move, and how to be present to their movement and respond. Okay, once you get that, everything else flows. So let's talk about this agenda. We're going to talk about some webinar norms. We're going to talk about your superpower, and then talk about 6 communication challenges and strategies to help. We're going to talk about your own personal communication barriers and moving from why that's happening to how to make something happen, how to dance through it to a more fulfilling life and less of chasing emails. We're also going to identify some coping strategies, choose some tools, and commit to a path. So here's some webinar norms. I am going to encourage you to see challenges from different perspectives. One of my biggest heroes is Byron Katie. You can write that down and check her out later. She has a great website, great podcast, etc. But what she does is help people not be stuck in their perspective, to see the world and different situations from many, many different perspectives. And I encourage you to do that here. I encourage you to do that every day in your life and in your work. I also would like to share this webinar norm that we're going to assume we are all doing the very best we can with the tools we have. When we know better, we do better. And that's for us, and that's for the folks that we support. I'm going to also encourage you to try new tools. Because when you try new tools, things that felt impossible before suddenly feel like something that might be doable, and that can change your life and the lives of the people around you. Okay, so give me a virtual thumbs up or a yes or okay, or I've got this in the chat, or turn on your video and give me a real life thumbs up. Are these some webinar norms that you can be with today? Looking at things from different perspectives, trying new tools, assuming that we're all doing the best we can. All right, thanks, Rachel, for that thumbs up. Margot, thank you. Miriam, thank you. Yay, Wendy, thank you for that thumbs up. That's awesome. Yay, yay, yay. Okay, here we go. Let's talk about your superpower. We all have them. Part of what we're doing in our work is finding the superpowers of others and helping augment those superpowers. But in order to do that, we have to get in touch with our strengths, with what's working, right? So what is it? I want you to type it in the chat. What is your superpower? For me, it's incredible perseverance. I don't give up. And sometimes that's challenging, right? But it's that perseverance that got me through a head injury, that helped me launch a business that makes my heart sing every day. It's what gets me through challenging days with my 4 kids. It's finding that drive inside that says, this is possible, and I'm going to take one more step. So what's your superpower? Tell us. I'd also love for you to add your pronouns, your preferred pronouns, into the chat. This is really, really important when you're navigating connections with families. Of course, we often assume pronouns that match how people present themselves, but that is not the reality of human beings. And so just asking that question helps create safety for people who often feel the least safe in different environments. And I think I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, but it's an important tangent. When we're working in the world of neurodivergent folks, a lot of folks see people just as their label of Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, autism, whatever, ED. But I want you to think about the intersection of humanity. I want you to think about how you can have autism, you can be autistic, and you can be trans. You can have Down syndrome and you can be gay. You can have cerebral palsy and identify as non-binary, right? This is critical to think of people in a complex 3D world and include their sexuality and their gender in that. Our culture has made this so that we're calling folks with developmental disabilities asexual so much of the time, like not acknowledging that piece of who they are or their gender identity. People deserve to be seen as their fullness in life. So asking that question is so, so, so critical to that work. My name is Lydia Dolch. I go by she and they pronouns. I'm open to whatever people feel comfortable calling me. And I would love for you to share, again, your superpower and your preferred pronouns. Okay, so I'm seeing some really great superpowers here. I'm seeing persistence, caring, empathy, loyalty, humor, yes, positive attitude, yes. Let's see, not giving up, strength, humor, dedication to children, ability to empathize, persistence, hope, yes, curiosity, creativity. These are incredible superpowers. Personal connection, caring, being a mom. These are awesome. These are awesome, awesome superpowers. Fabulous. Thank you. Okay. So now let's dive in. Let's dive into the meat of this, or the alternative protein source, if that's your bag. We're going to go through the 6 communication challenges and tools to help each one of those challenges. So again, I've worked in many, many different sectors with many, many different people, and these are the themes that come up over and over again. And we're going to talk about them and kind of pull them apart and create solutions now. We're going to talk about the mama bear, the puddle, Funhouse, Honorary PhD, virtual groups junkie, and ice statue. Here we go. I will share a link to a PDF at the end of this, but I will also share that when you write things down, it helps it stay in your brain. And there will be some times where you're going to need to put some information into personal action, and it'll be helpful to write things down. Okay, so I want you to use the hand raising button or raise your righteous hand. If you have ever experienced someone like this, worked with someone like this, perhaps you're like this, or a family member is like this, because we all kind of fall into some of these personas at times. Here we go. First, mama bear. Have you worked with folks who are ready to fight, who are ready to protect, and who are ready to pounce, and who come into every situation assuming that they will not be getting what they need, and you do not have their best interest in hand, and they are ready to attack? Okay, I see 4 people have raised, 5, 6 people have raised their virtual hand. That's awesome. 10%, yes, right? Like mama bear, this can be a powerful thing, and it can be really intense to be around. Yes. So what do you do? What do you do when you're feeling like the mama bear, or you're working with a mama bear? Okay, here we go. Build trust through listening and action. You want to do that reflective listening. What you are going through is frustrating and exhausting. Let's make a plan right now to blah, 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 blah. And we will check in blah, 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 to see how it's going and make adjustments. You don't have to do this alone. So many families I've talked with are at the mama bear place because there are these people that show up into their life for like 3 months before they get moved to a different position. And they just kind of like write down the information. They don't make a plan, and they don't follow up. And so these folks are feeling really, really frustrated and overwhelmed and not heard. So the idea here with mama bears is to acknowledge their feelings, make a plan, and set up a check-in time, building accountability, building action steps. Make sense? Questions, comments? I know we'll have some time at the end if I've timed this right. Okay, now let's talk about the puddle. So the puddle is someone who's like very wishy-washy and feels stepped on. Well, I don't know if I want to add nutrition. Maybe we're going to be okay. I don't like it when the care manager comes over and like, I don't know, they're just too bossy. Like, maybe adding some more OT would be a good idea. Okay, I'm seeing like 6 people raise their hand. Any more? Who's hung out with a puddle before? Like, oh, 7. Okay, I don't know. I don't know if that's what I actually want. Maybe I could commit to twice a week. Yeah, maybe that referral is a good idea, but I don't know. When I called that office before, they were just like really mean. So I don't know if I want to do that. Okay. So like 11 people raising hand. This is, you've hung out with puddles before, right? Okay. So what do? Recommend one action step. This might feel like I have a list of 10 things that need to happen. It doesn't matter. If you give them the whole 10 action item lists, none of it will happen. But if it's one action step, then you're going to start making some baby steps. You're going to start making some progress. So for example, this transportation budget will allow you to use an Uber to get to work. Are you willing to give this a try? We can always adjust the plan. It's specific, it's actionable, and you do it then. And give them the out that like you can change it later, right? It's like when you're signing up folks for early intervention and they're like, will this be on the permanent record? Like that's like the biggest concern, right? Will my child be labeled forever? Well, no, just like get them into services now. And when they're close to 3.5, let's talk about it, right? We can cross that bridge when we come to it. Okay. Funhouse. To the me is not very fun. Have you been in a funhouse like this at a carnival, like with the millions of mirrors, and you have no idea what is reality and where the actual exits are, and whether or not you can get out, what's real, what's not, right? So for some people, navigating systems, supporting loved ones with neurodivergent needs, it's really overwhelming. They're really not sure what reality is. It's really confusing. All of the entrances and exits feel really, really overwhelming. So what do? Again, it's about one action step. Oh, I went backwards. Okay. You're going to create, multiple. Create and review clear outlines with action steps. This is you writing it down, whether you pull up something virtual on Zoom, like a whiteboard on Zoom and start typing away, whether you're in their kitchen and you're writing it down on paper. You're going to draw a map to show how these connect. Then we will create an ordered to-do list, one for me and one for you, right? You're taking away the mystery. You're taking away the mirrors. You're giving specific entrance points and exit points, and you're showing how it all connects, right? This is OPWDD self-direction. This is the traditional plan. This is what SSI is. This is what early intervention services, this is what transition services look like drawing it out. The pamphlets aren't going to work. It's overwhelming. It feels like Funhouse, unless perhaps you're there walking through them, right? When you create structure in front of them, there's a feeling of safety and of direction, and that's what you want to create. Okay, so let's talk about honorary PhD. An honorary PhD, and let me know if you've met some of these folks, they research incessantly until they have more questions than answers. Oh, there's like 8 people automatically just like raise their hand. Like, I know those PhDs, right? And like they might be like super irritated that you haven't read that article that explains exactly the challenge of the neurodivergent situation that their loved one is going through. Or just so irritated that the rest of the world does not have this information, right? Okay, so 9 participants like, yep, I've hung out with a PhD before, right? And knowledge is power, absolutely. But sometimes it can get daunting and freeze people up. And we'll talk more about Frozen, but let's talk about what do you do when you hang out with an honorary PhD? First, ahead of time, ask what they would like to put on the agenda and any references they would like you to check out, because then you don't spend your whole hour together with them like reviewing the references that they want you to know about. Sometimes that's useful, but oftentimes if you can just skim it, then you can spend quality time actually coming up with solutions and action plans. You also want to take good advantage of pros and cons lists with an honorary PhD, right? Because it's very factual and you can see it in front of you. It's logical and it takes some of the information and categorizes it. That was interesting. Categorizes it in a way that's more digestible and helps create an action plan and movement. All right, you with me? Let me see here, like, yeah, or heck yeah, or bring it on, or I want more, or oh my gosh, my brain is already exploding. Hit me up in the chat. What's going on?
Okay.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Great. Yes. Oh, yeah. Brilliant. Okay, let's do this thing. So now let's talk about virtual groups junkies. This is for folks that get a lot of emotional and support and ideas from online groups. If you're in this region, maybe it's Mama's Comfort Camp, or, there are just so many exceptional needs caregiver groups on Facebook and people you can follow on Instagram. And so they might get a lot of that emotional support and they might get great ideas, but they might have a hard time sifting through it, right? And so perhaps what they're looking for from you is professional support and support with follow through, okay? Because they want to take some of these ideas and actually put them into action. Like, oh yeah, I saw this course, it looks really good. I don't know the funding to pay for it, right? Well, maybe there's community support money, etc. That then you bring your expertise to meet them in that place. Okay. So again, I guess I skipped skip this. Have you met some virtual groups junkies? Raise of hands. Folks that spend a lot of time on their phones finding, 6 people. Okay. Finding places to rant or gripe or get ideas, or lots of Pinterest ideas for the perfect sensory home, etc. All right. You're going to want to ask if there are recommendations from friends or groups that they would like help implementing. And then also create a specific plan to access specific resources. A lot of times that's looking for funding in creative ways through local funnels, through grants, or looking at budgets in creative ways, such as self-direction. Okay, here we go. Now we're talking about the ice statue. Who here has hung out with an ice statue before? Anyone? Overwhelmed, cannot make progress. Maybe they know what they need to do. They have that list of the doctors they need to call and the referrals they need to get, and they can't make progress. Okay, this is a popular one. It feels so overwhelming. They are not moving. What do you do? Let's talk about it. With an ice statue, you want to ask yes, no questions. All right. Have you called for that referral yet? Okay. Then you create one action item, and then you do that action item together. And they might just be like, no, like, I'll totally call when you're gone. And you say, you know what? It is so hard to just keep things in your head on a list. Like, why don't I just hang out here while you make that call? And then it's done. Then you can check it off your list and it's going to feel so good, right? And it might seem a little silly, like, I'm going to sit with them while they fill out these forms. Yes, do that. That is the biggest gift you can give, because ice statues are so overwhelmed. There is no movement. There's no movement. And that is so painful for them and for their loved ones that actually need that support, right? So creating an action plan of one item and completing that item together is a gift, because then they can see momentum. Then they can see progress being made. Okay. Then you make the date for the next meeting. And maybe these are folks that you meet on Zoom so that you can meet them more often. Maybe these are folks where you have like shorter meetings instead of longer ones, twice a month, a little higher maintenance, but you want to make progress. You want to change people's lives. And this is a way to help folks who are completely frozen begin to thaw out and realize that they can move toward the life they want to live. All right. So ice statues. Okay. Let's keep rolling. So, we've talked about families navigating with folks maybe in your own family or folks that you support. But then there's this other element, which is you, right? A lot of folks that have worked in a government system for a long time have the experience of working with hoops and protocols that do not necessarily serve people, shall we say. So what can you do to own your part in this? Like, I am jaded, or I am checked out, or there are some things that I just do not like approaching. Okay. Owning your part transforms your life. I'm going to give you a chance to do that. So what has stopped you from effectively communicating in the past? Yes, we can say like, oh, encrypted emails are just such a pain and nobody checks them. So that's just, there's no point, and they don't return my calls, right? Fine. Write it down. Maybe it's time management. Like, you're just so excited to be back in the office with people, you catch up with somebody for like 45 minutes and then you don't actually get to like working on your caseload. Just own it. You don't have to share it with anybody else. Maybe you plain old forgot. Maybe you don't have an organizational system that works for you and things just like fell off the radar. Maybe you're dealing with like major mental or physical challenges, like maybe, keeping kids alive and learning while trying to work at the same time, minor details like that. Maybe you're going through a major loss, a death, or a major injury or health challenge. That can get in the way of effective communication, right? It's not like blamey, it's just reality, but owning it helps. Maybe you don't hear a response from people. They just leave the radar. Maybe it's a really difficult person. It like triggers somebody. It's like, just like your mother-in-law, that like that relationship is hard and this totally reminds you of that, whatever. The person that you're trying to connect with, you don't actually really want to connect with. Like, maybe that's a barrier for you. Maybe you have the wrong contact info and you're just like calling somebody that doesn't have their voicemail set up and never answers, and you don't have any backups, right? Or maybe you don't have good news and you really don't want to make that call because like, this person's going to find out they don't have that funding, or they don't get that therapy, or whatever isn't going to happen. And so you just kind of like keep postponing it. Okay, I'm giving you 1 minute, 60 seconds to write down your personal barriers to communication. Please use this time. It's powerful. "26 seconds remaining. What have been your personal barriers in the past?" Okay, my timer is off. Hopefully you wrote something down, right? We're all doing the best we can with what we have and who we are in this moment. Owning it, labeling it, helps us get real and find solutions. So let's talk about some of that. Let's move from why. Like, oh my, I guess I put snooze on that little alarm. Let's move from why to how. Let's talk about proactive communication plans. Okay. How do you get to something that's effective? How do you get to something that's not just about chasing emails? It's time for you to write down some ideas again. Talk about your boundaries. Share them with individuals and add this as a part of your signature line. It's your hours. Some people like to just get up early and start working. Let people know that. Maybe you have to take your kid to school at a certain time. Write that down. I'm gone from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. every day. Let them know about your turnaround time. Like, if you haven't heard from me within 24 hours, ding me again. Right? Just be honest about it. If you get inundated with emails and that's how they want to communicate with you, let them know that they need to keep sending them, or write it in all caps, or put a flower emoji in the title, whatever. And then also your fastest mode of communication. Like, maybe they text you and say, call me. and then you know you're going to call them back, right? Maybe you're really great at texting, you know, the non-identifying information back and forth. Maybe you're really an email person. Let them know that you're going to want that information from them. But again, it's a back way. It's a dance. It's a dance. Share what's real for you. Now, I'm going to also recommend that you front load your intakes or you do a restart, right? Because you can just have like the official forms that somebody might do in an original intake. But when you're developing a relationship with somebody, you want to make sure that they feel seen and heard. And so part of that is really asking again, who is it that I should be connecting with? You know, who is it that is really wants to be doing the paperwork part of this and is able to be receptive to each step, right? What are your pronouns? Don't assume, right? Some people be like, I don't know what you mean. Okay, if they do that, fine. You can say people go by lots of different pronouns, such as he, him, she, her, they, them. What do you go by? And then if they're like, I have no idea, just whatever. But at least you're creating the conversation. And maybe that person who's just kind of dismissive of you is dismissive, but the person that's sitting in the other room takes a deep breath for the first time in 5 years. It's worth it. Okay, then you want to ask for their preferred modes of communication for your first attempt. Like if you want me to reach out to you, what's the best way? Is it email? Is it text? Is it a phone call? Then ask about their typical communication turnaround. Like if I don't hear from you in 24 hours, should I get worried? Or should I know that you're like balancing 5 million things and just ping you again? Okay, get this information in the intake, or just do it as like a, hey, I went to this workshop and I was inspired. And it made me think about ways to kind of make sure we're all on the same page, right? Or it's the first of the month, or you make up any excuse you want, but feel free to blame me. Okay, then here's what's really, really critical. At the beginning of any relationship, it often feels like this is gonna be amazing. And then sometimes that doesn't happen. So you wanna come up with plan B. You wanna come up with secondary contact and pronouns, who that next person is. Maybe that first person, plan A, like the primary person, maybe they go to the hospital. Maybe their phone breaks, right? If they're just like, this is it, this is the only person, I'm the only person you can communicate with. You're like, well, like, is there like a relative or a friend or a neighbor, like in an emergency, if I don't hear from you and I want to make sure you're alive, like, could I connect with them? And then the communication mode for the second attempt, like they only like text, they only like email, etc. All right, this is a lot. I feel like I'm doing a fire hose. How you doing? Let's check in. How's it going? Thumbs up from William and a smile with a dashing beard. Lovely. Thank you. Thumbs up from Mark. Caitlin's a thumbs up. Thank you. Thank you. Luciana, thank you. All right. Lots of people raising. Great. Thank you for staying with me. This is a good investment in your life and the lives of the people you serve. Thank you, Mariella. Communication is a dance. It's about a give and take, sharing who you are, sharing what you need, asking for who they are, asking for what they need, and then responding with that information. Let us review. We have a mama bear. Acknowledge frustration. Make a specific plan. Funhouse. Create and review clear outline with action steps. Puddle. Recommend one action step. 1. Honorary PhD. Request agenda and resources and create pros and cons lists. Virtual groups junkies. Ask for group recommendations you can support. Create a plan to access specific resources. And then ice statue. Ask yes or no questions. Plan one action item. Do that action item together. And set a date for the next meeting. Okay? Here's some tools that you may or may not be able to use with the health department, but I'm throwing it out there because maybe you'll use it in other parts of your life. And you can review this in the PDF that we're about to share. Just different ways, especially if you're working with English language learners. Talking Points is really powerful. It's an app that can translate text into 100+ languages. Okay. So what tools are you going to try? You're like, here is a lot of information. Write something down. Write down one action step, one thing you're going to take away from this time together to change your life, even if it's changing your signature line with your hours of operation, even if it's asking people about their pronouns and sharing yours. It's writing pros and cons lists, packing markers and paper to draw maps. What's it going to be? I'm going to give you 1 minute. 30 seconds. Okay, brilliant, mighty, amazing people, amazing dancers. You have something written down now. How are you going to follow through? You're going to make an alarm. You're going to have a post-it, accountability partner. What's going to get you to commit to a plan that can change your life and the lives of the people you work with? Do it. And here's our contact information. And Shay, can you just pop that information in the chat so people can have that contact information? If you're like, Lydia, I just need more and I need to process this and I have these people that I'm thinking about, or I don't know if I have people I'm thinking about. Shay is also just going to drop in the chat a free 30-minute consult with me, and you can sign up right now. Spots are limited, so sign up. And whether this is for you personally or your cousin or somebody you're working with or supporting, I love connecting with people. I love connecting with people one-on-one, and that's a great spot to do it and a resource to share with other people who feel super duper stuck. So we have like a couple of seconds for questions, but we'll ask Miriam exactly how many seconds that is. So feel free to type things in the chat, unmute. I'd love to answer any and all questions you have about pretty much anything, including my favorite ice cream from Trader Joe's.
So we do have time for questions. So feel free to unmute yourself or put your question in the chat, whatever you feel comfortable doing.
Excellent. I'm going to just start answering some common questions that people ask. And if this is yours, awesome. And then you feel free to join in. So one thing that folks navigate is this transition time, right? Between high school and no longer high school. And there's this major void of services and support and connection. And so one way that Open the Lid serves the community is by creating an incredible community of friendships and support that can be accessed virtually. So for example, there's a guy in the Adirondacks who was pretty much considered like the mascot of the town, right? He didn't have friends or connections. He graduated during, 2020 pandemic. He was so depressed and so alone, and he had never really had friends. And so he joined Open the Lid, and for the first time in his life, he has friends. He has a rhythm to his day, a reason to get up in the morning. He has people that get that he has Down syndrome and his dad's an alcoholic and it's hard. And talks about, create safe space for that intersection of like, let's be real. We don't just have to do coloring pages together. Like, you're a real human being that's going through a lot. And let's navigate that together as a community and build real friendships. And this person, found another person through Open the Lid with Down syndrome who also loves swimming and skiing and High School Musical. And they met up partway across New York State and stayed at a place where they could swim and their families could connect. And seeing the elation on their faces, this connection that would have never happened otherwise, it's enough, right? It like fills me for the year. You guys are in this for the right reasons. So you know what those moments of joy, right? The payback feels like. William's like, yep. It's so good, right? Let's see, Tammy, do you have a question, or are these hands up from something else? Some people, okay, cool. Some people ask about, like what kind of people we work with. Everyone, like literally everyone. Like there's somebody we work with who's quadriplegic and nonverbal and uses a feeding tube and head switches for augmentative communication. It's totally, that's my bag. Augmentative communication, alternate communication, helping people create systems. Sometimes it happens really well in the schools, but then translated at home in the community is super hard. And a lot of folks just, maybe they have ComHab or respite, but those folks don't know how to help someone navigate. So we also do like individual training, like helping ComHab or helping respite, like use tools that are effective for communication. That's often something that we do. Navigating sensory challenges. Like, yes, you can pull in OT sometimes, but sometimes you just need somebody that's going to get like the whole scope of everything and figure out a way to create resources and systems to make somebody with sensory overload feel like they can participate in life. And then connect that to a special education plan. We help with advocacy. We help with writing IEPs. We help with family empowerment so that they know that they have as much voice at the table as anybody else there. We do a lot of work. We worked with OPWDD so that officially it's the individuals that are getting the services. But what I know is that if you don't support the family system, it doesn't matter, right? Because burnout is crazy, crazy high. And like, we did really great things. I ran an autism program for the Ithaca City School District. We did crazy, amazing, inclusive things. So like, how do we actually create inclusive supports for the entire family unit and build micro moments of self-care to build that foundation that will help folks run this ultra marathon in the desert without water at a sprint pace, which is neurodivergent parenting and caregiving oftentimes.
Are there any questions about the content of the webinar, specifically communication styles or finding your path tools? We'd love to hear if anyone has any questions or comments.
Or just what resonated. Any aha moments.
Okay, well, if there are no questions or comments, and you can write them in the chat, you can raise your hand, you can unmute yourself. Let's just scan one more time.
I'd be curious to know what your action step is. Is anyone willing to share their action step? Margot, can I pick on you? Can you unmute?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wrote down that I was going to put appointments on my calendar for calling back and following up with people. So rather than say, how about I check back in with you in 2 or 3 weeks or whatever, 2 days, whatever is appropriate to the situation, which, if it's more than a week, it's easy to forget to do. And so, so not just my meetings will be on my calendar, but also my intention to contact a family by phone or whatever it means.
That's brilliant, Margot. Thank you. That's a really, really great idea. All right. What other friends do I have here that I can harass? Aaron. What's your action step? Or Diane. What are you thinking? You're already putting them into action. That's great. William, did you unmute? Go for it.
I definitely related to the difficult personality situation. All the years in the field, I've encountered many.
Yeah.
But I also understood how to work around that. And what the plan of action, some of that I've done in the past.
Yeah.
I will give you, it's a 50-50 outcome, but it does work half the time. And that's the important thing. And then you keep trying anyway. I'm very I'm stubborn. I keep persisting until I find a solution. And sometimes the families are overwhelmed and they are not really listening. And then you have to step back and find out what's causing that. And then you get back into what you're trying to do to get them to that final decision to address those issues.
Yeah, I think that's really important, just to acknowledge the overwhelm and know that it's okay to stop and meet them there, right? Like that's the dance, right? You're trying the foxtrot with somebody, they don't get it, like you stop and then you do like the first step.
No, I'll do a cha-cha and that's fine. No,
All right, okay.
One of the things I like to say to families is that I don't want them to feel like the action steps that we set up are things that I expect or need from them, that this is for them to do in their time when it's a priority for them. And that I ask only that, you know, if they agree to have follow-up, I ask only that they don't dodge my calls. That even if they haven't done any of the things we've talked about, or, you know, taken any steps to move toward, you know, whatever it is they're working on, you know, I just want to, you know, be there for them to, and whatever, see if there's something else I could do to help, or just say, all right, we'll check in again another time, you know.
Mhm.
So I just don't, I set that up right off the bat, just, you know, don't dodge my calls because you think I have an expectation that, you know, I'm going to be disappointed if you didn't meet.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Just meeting them where they're at and acknowledging like it's okay to just be you and show up.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. And I think also one piece of that, Margot, is like, for some people that's really, really reassuring. Like this is for you to do on your own time. For some people that could be really daunting to hear. Like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, it's more stuff for me to do on my own time.
Right.
So I think also adding to that conversation, like, is this something that you want to primarily do on your own time? Or is this something that you would really feel supported by if you had somebody help you start some of this initial paperwork, or just like hang out while you made that one call that feels really tricky? And you know, maybe that's within your job description, maybe it's not, but sometimes people, what we say that we mean to come across as really comforting can be like super duper overwhelming. So trying to get a deep sense of what they need and their communication and their action style so that they can move toward the outcome that they're looking for. Does that resonate at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else?
If there are no other questions or comments, I just want to remind the LHD staff that joined us today that Miriam has put the feedback survey in the chat box, and it'll take you, 1 minute to fill out. And I know a lot of times you skip the what would you like to see in the next webinar portion, but we would really appreciate your suggestions because we want to tailor these webinars to your needs. So if you could please fill out that portion, let us know what you want to see in the next webinar. That would be great. Let's see, Miriam, anything else?
Well, this is a recorded webinar, so we'll be sending out the recording in an email as well, and along with the link to the survey.
So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I would really appreciate when you show up and participate. It was great to see everyone, and thank you, Lydia.
You
Thank
are
you,
so
Lydia.
welcome. Totally an honor. Great to
Where were
meet
you when I was, before I retired? Oh my God.
Thank you, Lydia.
Appreciate it. And feel free to reach out. I'd love to have further conversations for sure.